flipping back the calendar to highlight yesteryear's finest while exploring the vast archives in cinema history. This is the Movie Review Rewind podcast on Nashville Movie Dispatch.
Welcome back for another episode of the Movie Review Rewind podcast right here on Nashville Movie Dispatch. I'm your host for the show, the EIC at Sobros Network, Big Natural Stoney Keeley. You can follow me on Twitter at Stoney Keeley. Collectively, we are at Sobros Network, and all of our work reviewing film, talking about movies, list, features, whatever the entertainment industry has to offer is available at nashvillemoviedispatch.substack.com. Joined, as usual, by my partner in crime at Nashville Movie Dispatch. He is a board member of the Music City Film Critics Association, member of the Southeastern Film Critics Association, our resident film critic, Mr. Big Shot himself, Brandon Vick. Brandon, how you doing today, my man?
I'm watching TV.
This
is beautiful.
It is, a little ambiance in the studio. Yeah. I think it kind of helps.
What kind of house is that?
It helps, create a zen-like focus. It grounds us in the room.
Look at that shelving. Look at that.
Yeah, I know it's something. I'm pretty sure that's just AI that they just...
they got me again.
Yeah, they just laid an image. We've got some ambiance on the YouTube.
There's a fireplace, beautiful open windows.
Just looking into the forest.
Plenty of,
I
see a deer.
There is some jazz music playing over this. It's nice and relaxing, but it's muted because we're recording a podcast in the studio.
Y'all aren't allowed to hear that.
Yeah.
I'm doing good. It's May. It's hot.
Well, it's that early summer window. We've got to be old men and talk about the weather.
Yeah, it is.
But it's still it's warm during the day, but it's still a little cool at night.
I was just
relief.
telling my 2-year-old the other day that it's sweaty balls season.
Yeah.
That's how you take a shower, you walk outside, you're like, why did I even do it? Why did I even do it?
Yeah, I get it. I totally get it. We got a fun one today. What?
Yeah, we do.
Go ahead.
Oh, no. Yeah, we do.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about 1982's
That's right.
Night Shift.
I think it's always fun when we talk about movies when they come out before we were born.
Yeah, absolutely. This was one that we missed along the way. There is a specific reason.
We're all 86, right?
Yeah, we are. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't remember what I was going to say, but
yeah, no,
I'm excited. There is a reason we picked this film that we'll get to in a second. But I do want to introduce joining us once again, fresh off of our Oscars live. Well, not fresh. That was 2 months ago.
That was in February, March. March.
But our buddy Brett is back. Brett, how are you doing today?
Hello, I'm good. The thing I always say, and I haven't heard many others say this, but I think it often this time of year. It's not the heat; it's the humidity that gets you.
That's true. That's true. And then last month was awful. Lebanon got wiped out by tornadoes. That was awful. So.
What are you going to do if that actually happens?
I really hope that's not true.
I'm going to have my own talk show. That's what I'm going to have. Forget this.
You better go buy a lottery ticket.
Forget this.
That's all I can say.
Yeah, but God, Watertown just gone.
If that happens, will you promise to delete this? Or at least my voice from it?
Don't delete it.
I'm going to have to.
No.
I have to, but... Man, we've talked about this before. When we pre-record episodes, you cannot break news that in the future that hasn't happened.
One day I'm going to get lucky. I hope not, because my predictions have either involved devastations or death.
Yeah.
So I hope I'm not right.
Specific individuals?
But yeah, Rusty Wallace was one of them.
I have to share that story.
Yeah, I would say if you're basically under 40, you don't probably care to know who it is. But
we used to record the Sobros Power Hour on a Tuesday or Wednesday night, and back then we got on a topic on one episode that has since been deleted from the internet, by the way. Those early Power Hours would probably get us in trouble today.
Yeah.
I mean, I still have them on my computer, but I digress. And at one point we were talking about what if we could break news in the future that hasn't happened yet. If we break news on Tuesday and it happens before the episode comes out on Friday, we would look like prophets.
Yeah.
Which is important to us. It's a goal. We want to be prophets.
Which I'll be honest, even now I still regret. I wish in one of the podcasts I just would have said, oh my God, Gene Hackman. I can't believe he went like that.
Yeah.
And he's in his 90s. I could have that probably would have been easy.
Yeah.
Rusty Wallace is.
You're going to get one right eventually.
One day I'm going to get one right.
Name enough of them.
I am going to get one right.
You reported on that particular episode.
Ian McKellen dead at 87.
Rusty
Wallace. Roll it.
All right. Well, we're here to talk
I really
about
hope
Night
he's
Shift.
past that age already.
I'm hoping he lives forever. So.
Yeah.
Because I think he's in Doomsday.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk about Night Shift for those of you that might not be familiar. It is a 1982 American comedy film directed by Ron Howard. The film centers on a timid night shift morgue employee whose life is turned upside down by a new coworker who fancies himself a free-spirited entrepreneur. That is courtesy of Wikipedia. This is Henry Winkler in a lead role, which I think was
Michael Keaton as a sidekick.
Pretty interesting. It was also like the debut. It was Michael Keaton bursting onto the scene in a highly comedic role. The reason we're talking about this film today is that Brandon and I, on an episode at this point, I think it's been several months back, maybe even years back, I don't recall, we did an episode on Michael Keaton's filmography and what an interesting career trajectory he has had and how he got started in comedic roles before the role of Batman came to him and kind of caught people by surprise. It was a bit of an odd casting at the time.
There was controversy. Yeah, I mean, there was controversy of him being Batman, and Batman came out in 89.
Yeah.
And this is 82, so I mean, we've got that. But Mr. Mom,
Mom
those come out before. Yeah. But I mean, I've said this before. I mean, he's kind of my Batman. So
yeah,
not that Christian Bale and them aren't great, but he's just kind of he was the Batman I remember seeing first and foremost.
So Keaton kind of goes on to do a little more serious stuff.
Yeah, I've heard he's pretty good.
Yeah,
I've heard he's pretty good.
Wins an Oscar. Did he win the Oscar for Birdman?
No, he did not.
That was the sore subject.
Yeah, Eddie Redmayne won it, and they even showed where it looked like Michael Keaton thought he was. So he reaches in his pocket, what appears to be maybe an acceptance speech, and then they announce Eddie Redmayne, and he just stands there. That's the
gun out of his
There's
pocket.
three things that the Oscars have really kind of sent me in a downward spiral.
I know what two of them are.
Michael Keaton not winning.
Rami Malek
winning as being Bugs Bunny. And Mickey Rourke losing for The Wrestler.
Yeah.
I'm not
still
happy.
Hot. Still
not
hot
happy.
That. Yeah.
And if Mickey Rourke would have won that Oscar, he might actually be doing something worthwhile.
Yeah.
But instead he's I don't know, he's Clayface and no one knows what he looks like from time to time. Yeah. He just mush his nose into his face, and that's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
But remember, him and Chris Jericho had a fun.
That was fun.
Fight fest.
That was fun. So, Michael Keaton, I think, to a certain generation, might not know what comedic chops he has.
Yeah. No, that's fair.
And I think his performance in The Other Guys kind of got back to his roots in comedy a little bit, and maybe expose some younger people to like, oh, well, this guy's actually pretty funny.
Yes. Listen, not that, and I'm not a fan of Mark Wahlberg, but him and Will Ferrell are great in that.
Yeah.
But Michael Keaton is a total surprise every single scene because he keeps doing TLC songs and then his Bed Bath & Beyond spill when he's there. But yes, I think that was kind of an introduction to some people on exactly like, this guy actually was doing funny before, literally before any of us were born.
And so when we saw that his first feature film acting credit, like a full role, I think there was something that he's got like a short film or something before.
Yeah.
But this was his big bursting onto the scene, so to speak. Yeah. We decided, hey, we need to go back and watch this film. And
it's still highly regarded and kind of like
it's
his... I mean, one, it deals with his trajectory as far as what kind of like caught your attention. And I can say his performance does that. Yeah. It's not quite what I expected, but I could see of anything happening in that movie, he's kind of the standout because he has the more outlandish role than the straight guy that Winkler's playing.
Yeah. Would you agree with that, Brett?
Yeah, I think so. I was just thinking that it reminds me of Bruce Willis being cast in Die Hard. That was a surprise to a lot of people because
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because the
he was
Moonlight.
on the
Yeah.
he did a lot of comedy stuff before, which of our generation, I think of him as action guy.
I do too.
Yeah, that's the only.
Yeah.
I honestly think of Die Hard and Sixth Sense.
And similarly, Michael Keaton, we think of him as Batman and those kind of roles. But
Yeah,
it
that's
is
true.
interesting to see this before. And similarly, you may be going in this direction, Stoney, but just that it's an early Ron Howard movie.
Yeah.
And kind of that piece of it to see
Which-
an early version of something he did.
Which I'll be honest, when I saw that it was actually directed by him and produced by Brian Grazer, because now they have their own company and they've been producing for years and years and years. But it kind of makes sense because Ron Howard and Henry Winkler and
Yeah.
Happy Day. I mean, so
Well,
it
it
makes
is-
sense.
that
and you're only
is-
talking about 82.
Yeah.
So everybody's young and
That is where I wanted to kind of start the conversation about this movie, because it is something you look back on all these years later. I mean, at this point, it's what?
82,
I mean, it's 92, 2002, 12,
45?
40, 43.
almost 45 years.
Almost 50 years old this movie is. That's crazy. But to look back on it 43 years later, it feels like one of those really interesting, really cool moments in time where it's Ron Howard, early stages. It's Michael Keaton, literally his introduction to a lot of people. Henry Winkler at the time is wildly popular.
Who's probably the coolest dude
Yeah.
there.
Mm-hmm. Playing him like a leading
Don't forget
man
about
kind
Shelley
of role.
Long.
Shelley Long. Obviously, there's somebody else in the cast.
Kevin Costner
Don't blink and you'll miss him. Kevin Costner.
as a frat boy.
Yeah. So I mean, it feels like one of those where you can watch it through the perspective of 43 years having gone by and thinking, like, did any of these people, while they're working on Night Shift, kind of know the way that their careers would go?
And the beauty of it is
interesting.
everyone still has a career. Henry Winkler, I think Barry did a lot. I mean,
Well, yeah, for sure.
But Keaton took his break, came back, and I mean, he's
rolling.
he's going strong. And
Ron Howard's Ron
Howard.
Howard.
I was going to say that guy's been directing.
Yeah.
He's done I mean, Night Shift is fine, but Ron Howard's done some great stuff.
We'll start with you, Brett. I want to ask you both, like, how did having that knowledge bank of 43 years of where all these people would go in their careers, did it impact your enjoyment or lack thereof? Because we haven't gotten to our thoughts on the film yet, but did it impact your viewing experience watching Night Shift for the first time? Because we all, am I correct? We all saw it for the first time for this podcast?
Yes.
Yeah.
And just so you guys know, I just saw Tractor Supply has some of the
Okay.
lowest prices.
I can't turn the
this
TV
season.
on in here. This is like when we used to do live streams
TV.
and I couldn't get you to talk about the movie
Yeah,
because you were
'cause I
reading
watch
the
at the camera.
comments.
Yeah,
You're
with
reading the comments as they're
You know,
coming up.
some things I can't learn.
Yes, I would say it did enhance my viewing experience
I agree.
because
Yeah.
I was thinking of things like, Henry Winkler, it's kind of this interesting artifact of like, oh, they tried to make him like,
Sure.
I mean, even the Fonz wasn't, this role, like
Sure.
so straight-laced
Yeah.
and that kind of thing.
Yeah. And he's not that cool.
Well, and it's interesting. I mean, I'm thinking about things like Barry, like The Water Boy, like
Yeah.
where his career has
Scream.
gone.
Yeah.
Don't forget Scream.
Of course. How could we?
Parks and Rec as Dr.
Oh
Saperstein.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so comedy has been his lane later in life, but they tried to put him in this kind of handsome man, leading man role.
Yeah.
So and then I think about Michael Keaton, and you definitely see some, like, there's some Beetlejuice in this character,
Yeah.
and that kind of thing that stood out to me a lot.
Yeah.
Am I mistaken, Brandon? Correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like we talked about it on the Michael Keaton episode that somebody
I think
had
it's because
seen.
of Beetlejuice. Maybe that's what.
Maybe
we were
that's what
doing.
it was, but somebody had seen him in Night Shift and kind of thought, "Oh, that's a good vision." Like that helped
I
him
don't
get
know
the
if
role.
that was a Tim Burton thing.
I feel like we talked, like somebody said something.
There was a big hype behind Night Shift and the impression that Keaton's character had done, but I can't remember if it was Tim Burton or not. Because Beetlejuice is a comedic role. I mean, in the end,
Yeah.
which is funny because I was watching. Alec Baldwin has a new reality show with him and his wife and like his 7 other kids.
Mm-hmm.
Alec
Here's-
Baldwin and the Wild Things, right?
No, that's Denise Richards in The
My
Wild
apologies.
Things. I think it's just called The Baldwins.
Okay.
But anyway, I think anyway, I'm sorry to hear Alec Baldwin died last month, but but when he was talking, he said that when they was doing Beetlejuice, he had no idea what was going on and what that movie was about, which I find hilarious because
That is hilarious.
It does seem. I mean, it does seem pretty outrageous. But but I think maybe Tim Burton maybe seen something because Tim Burton's Beetlejuice would lead to Tim Burton's Batman. So I feel like that was one of the things. And like we said, he did do Mr. Mom and some other, I think a couple other popular comedic films before he kind of was, Batman.
Well, and that's an interesting connection too, that director to director that he went from that role to the next one.
Yeah.
So it makes a lot more sense that way.
Yeah. And so to answer the question that you asked, Brett, it's so weird to see like the eras of people, because if in 82, I think it's safe to assume that Henry Winkler is kind of the most recognizable person because of his history on TV. And of course, you always hear people talk about back then you had 3 channels. So when Happy Days came on, it's not like everybody knew Henry Winkler. And the Fonz essentially was kind of like the most memorable. He was scene stealer. But it is kind of funny the way that he's not quite the Fonz, which is fine because I think Henry Winkler is solid in the movie. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I do think it's some of the way that some of the pacing and some of kind of the arcs of this is kind of funny because we don't even really get to this prostitution part till like at least halfway through.
Yeah.
But there is something about when someone walks on screen and Keaton does this, is that the energy changes, the scene changes, the conversation, the dialogue changes. And the way he kind of rolls in, he is kind of that guy where I almost feel like you kind of have Winkler.
Who?
Henry Winkler. I don't know why I want to put an R in there.
Is the Wrinkler a Batman villain?
Wrinkler is in the MCU.
Correct. No.
He is returning for Avengers Doomsday.
That's correct. Yeah. Yep. You're right. It's it's played by Kevin Spacey. I remember seeing that chair. But you kind of know where it's like, hey, yeah, we know this guy, but who's that guy?
Yeah.
I really kind of felt that energy.
I felt like they had great chemistry because of the balance of the characters, because of how I almost called him Wrinkler again.
Winkler. It's
Henry Winkler was kind of written as this sort of everyman, down on his luck, wanting more out of life. Sharp guy, smart, quick, witty,
but he sticks to the rules. He likes everything in a certain way.
Kind of annoyed by Keaton's bombastic characteristics.
Keaton is an interruption to his.
Yes, it is very funny, very relatable to like. Yeah. Everybody has that person at work that just gets on their nerves, and
won't shut up.
The back and forth between the two, I felt really worked.
And I just like that freedom that Keaton has a lot more freedom, it seems like.
Yeah.
Because of like when like someone's coming in and he's doing their business in the office, he's like, oh yeah, but it's that carefree spirit that I think is attractive in this story.
Yeah.
That I think you say Wrinkler is, I think that's what his name is. The Fonz is so against, but it's funny because he was, and I wonder if Ron Howard did this because for so long Winkler was the rebellion.
Yeah.
He was he represented this rebellion character, and now it's totally different. And I don't know, maybe that was the attraction of playing someone that's kind of like a stickler for the rules, maybe.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Brett, what did you think of the chemistry between our two stars here?
Yeah, no, I agree that the dynamic works well. One thing that just thinking about this question of the era and kind of going back to something that stood out to me is that for Ron Howard, when I first saw Ron Howard directed this and I saw kind of the just the short version of what this movie was, it felt really weird to me, like
Yeah,
a weird
it
content
does.
match.
Yeah.
Especially,
because
coming from
Ron's
Happy
wholesome.
Days,
He's a wholesome kid.
right? And then, but the thing that stands out to me after watching it is that there's a lot of notes of like sweetness, like in this love story in it, in
It's
a way
not
that was
raunchy.
unexpected.
It's not nearly as raunchy
Right.
as the plot suggests.
That's
and
right.
Yeah, it's very sweet natured, which makes sense when
I was expecting raunchy, given the era. It's like not how many years after Animal House does this come out? Like comedies of that era.
yeah.
I was expecting a little bit of that.
Are you a fan of Animal House?
No, I think Animal House is one of the worst movies.
Are you glad John Belushi's dead?
Oh, I wouldn't say that.
Oh, okay.
I would.
I thought it was in your review.
Loved
Are
to
you
have
breaking
seen,
news?
John Belushi is dead.
I would have loved to have seen that parallel universe, that alternate timeline where Belushi is like something different than the
Jack
SNL.
Black.
Yeah, exactly. But I was expecting raunchy from this, and seeing Henry Winkler in the starring role, I was expecting like hokey humor kind of stuff.
Which
But
is kind of funny
it was
that
a
you
surprise.
you would associate that, but
Yeah.
it does make sense, and I think I just wonder if that's the appeal for Winkler to do it, but then you kind of cast someone like Keaton that's like, you know what, you be the disruption now, like
Yeah.
you go in and do it, but you know what, they didn't show any titties.
did they not?
I don't think so.
Not a single titty.
No.
I felt like there was one in there.
Yeah, I don't know that that's right.
Oh, is it not? Oh, I must.
Well,
have
you're
known.
married, so you probably
Right? Yeah. Well, I'm married and a Christian, so that's
yeah.
probably
So
why.
that's probably what it
That's
was.
it,
Yeah.
My son, we all watched it as a family. We thought it was really fun.
Good. good.
What did he think?
Oliver?
Yeah,
I don't know. He's shat in his underwear.
Yeah.
that
all
sounds
right.
like
But
approval
it
to
was
me.
towards the end. It was towards the end. And he's only done that for one other movie, and that was The Green Mile. So we watch a
So-
lot of cool stuff.
I know we were all a little
Michael Clark Duncan is dead, by the way.
a little surprised by Henry Winkler in this role, but like, what did you guys think of the decision after seeing the movie? Like, is there something there that worked with that, or was it a little too far from what we've come to know him as? Was it too
We're
different?
just talking about Winkler.
Yeah, just Winkler.
I think, and this is no fault of his, it's weird to see his name come up before Michael Keaton's, but again, you have to go. I mean,
You have to go back in time.
right? So that's
43
again
years.
no one's fault. But I like both of the roles, but I'll be honest, I didn't think either one was as impressive as I thought it would be, to be this kind of attention grabbing type performances.
Yeah,
Like a lot of it kind of flows through, and some of it is, and again, I mean, it is kind of, it's kind of tough to speak on because I'm watching it now in 2025,
sure.
but it is more of like, okay, you know what? I think there's a sweetness to it. I think there is some relatability to both of the characters, but the way that they kind of are defined throughout the story isn't quite what I expected, and it's still rather shallow in a lot of aspects of their character, and especially when Winkler and Shelley Long are to get together. There is this tenderness, but it's kind of like once you're kind of removed from the scene, you're kind of like, well, I don't really know if it's like that alluring as far as what they're trying to do, what they're trying to establish, and if honestly you overall believe it.
Yeah.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
I remember thinking as soon as I saw it, it was kind of weird to see Winkler as a leading man, but I did kind of like that they would, like, I think it was kind of him kind of pushing off maybe roles he's had in the past. But then I see Keaton, he comes in, and I like kind of him being this disruptor, but at the same time, it's almost like he's maybe not in it enough, but when he is in it, he does give this kind of different energy,
Mm-hmm.
but it's almost like sometimes within the scene, it's kind of dampened a little.
Okay.
So I don't know. It seemed like it was a kind of a tug of war sometimes when they were trying to get the seriousness, the outlandishness, and the funniness, and a lot of times Keaton had to be most of it, if not all of it.
Yeah.
And sometimes I don't know if it worked as well as it could. And then I think, okay, but if this is someone's first like real movie and first real role, it does kind of seem like, yeah, they're sort of new at this. You can kind of see,
which is weird to say
figuring it out. Yes,
about the
it is.
people involved
Yes,
in this film.
very
It's like,
much.
oh, they're figuring it out.
Very much.
Brett, your thoughts on Winkler as the leading man in this?
I do think it worked. Kind of this down on his luck, kind
Yeah.
of can't get it together guy, isn't happy in the relationship he's in, that kind of thing. Like we've talked about, in retrospect, I think comedy works better for him as his career goes on. It's hard for me now. I mean, even knowing the Fonz, it's hard for me to put him as kind of the handsome lead. But he's kind of the, the oafish kind of some good, some bad about him kind of guy. Brandon, what you're describing about the shallowness of the story, that part of it to me felt just very 80s storytelling.
Well, that's
especially
true.
for a
That's
comedy kind of deal. That's why to me, that's the way that it came across, was just very much of that era.
Yeah, and part of it, I agree. And again, when you're watching some in 2025 and some in 82, but it is overall, I thought it was good. I did kind of expect more, just because I guess of kind of the way that this movie is talked about. I thought it would be funnier. I didn't think it was actually like that funny. But I also think there's true is that you can't help it, but there's a perception that just is attached that, like, yes, I like Keaton and I know he can be funny, but I'm not seeing Keaton as just a comedic actor. Like it's impossible. Mm-hmm. So I think part of the fun in doing this is kind of having that mindset of like, what was it like when someone sat in a theater, Michael Keaton's name meant nothing, and when he came out on that scene and was like, hey, what the hell, like, what is going on? And but it's tough.
Do you think it was like watching Will Ferrell in Old School for us?
From what we know, I kind of feel like, yes, it was kind of like, hey,
who's that guy?
Wait a minute. Yeah, and he does have that kind of role that no matter what movie it is, you're not the main star.
Yeah.
But you're able to show off way more than anyone else. And Will Ferrell thrived on that at first, from Zoolander, Old School, things like that. So in a way, I think that could be the case.
Something similar.
It's like a Melissa McCarthy Bridesmaids kind of thing.
Yes, that's a better example.
That's what it reminds me
He
of.
does inject that energy into the story.
And as soon as he comes in, the scene does change.
Yeah.
And that says something about someone's on-screen presence.
One of my notes was Michael Keaton wardrobe, 10 out of 10. So every time he showed up, I wanted to see what he was going to be wearing.
He meant business.
He had the drip, as the kids say.
Yes.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah. I was kind of surprised. Well, I guess I shouldn't say surprised, because it is kind of easy to put yourself back in 1982. Well, I assume you guys might have different opinions. It felt pretty easy to put myself back in 1982 and see this being a massive hit because of the star power, because of the introduction to Keaton, the charisma, the story. It's funny. The marketing for this we'll talk about in a minute, but the film was a pretty big critical and financial success for the time. You mentioned it earlier, Brandon, when we talked about it on our Michael Keaton episode of the VixFlix podcast. It is still regarded as one of Keaton's signature works to this day. So it had a budget, $8.1 million, made $21.1 million at the box office, which I'm not sure if the numbers I'm looking at are like adjusted for inflation or not, but that's still that's a pretty big financial success. Have you guys looked at the score for Rotten Tomatoes? It's only based on 29 reviews, but I'm curious.
That's it?
I'm curious if you guys have a guess as to what it's rated on Rotten Tomatoes?
I don't remember it. I do think they show it when you are searching for a movie and seeing if you have to rent it or not. I know it's fresh.
It is fresh.
I do know that, but I want to think it was in the 80s. I want to think it was like 86.
It has a 9 attached to it. It was 93%.
93?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow, I don't remember that. I
The
remember it being
audience
high, but
is
not,
a little different.
yeah.
Audience 5,000 plus reviews at 63%.
And I feel like
I was going to guess 60.
But I feel like a lot of that is probably people who've watched it over the decades and
Yeah.
thought maybe the same thing that I was talking about.
That any movie like this, that's an interesting piece of the conversation. Is we're not in that era. None of us were born when this movie came out, so you can't put yourself back to, like we've talked about, what was it like when Henry Winkler was the biggest name?
Exactly.
Michael Keaton was the new guy.
Yeah.
Ron Howard.
Ron Howard has to only be known for Andy Griffith and Happy Days, and Henry Winkler is definitely Happy Days. So, and also I think if I'm not mistaken, I think they tried to do a show based on the Fonz that didn't do that well. So I feel like, what is Winkler's status at this stage in '82? More than and I think the casting works. I'm not against the casting, but it does kind of make you think like, well, where are we? Are we at the end of a Winkler Renaissance, Mr. Cool? Because it kind of feels like that, and then you kind of have the new blood come in and say, "Oh, look at me, look what I can do."
So I don't know his status. This is a quick Google search, but Happy Days was still running when this came out.
I did not realize that.
I don't know if he was still on it. It started in 74 and ran 11 seasons. Because I was wondering that about what, because it's one of those things like the Wonder Years. It wasn't actually obviously of the era that it's portraying, but that's an interesting piece of this too.
I can't imagine him looking. I'm not saying like he's an old man, but Winkler playing the Fonz as the guy I saw in Night Shift doesn't seem like that.
He really did look quite a bit older.
Yeah,
in this movie.
I thought for sure he was done with that.
So the film was a hit back in 1982.
Well, that's also when they stayed out for 8 months in theaters.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So it was easier to stack wins, so to speak.
You only have 3 movies to choose from. Who do you want to see? Winkler and Keaton?
Yeah. So Keaton's performance in this got a lot of critical acclaim. He did win, I think, Kansas City's Film Critics Circle Award for Best Supporting Actor. So he did get some gold out of this. Henry Winkler, would you guys be surprised to hear, was nominated for a Golden Globe for this performance? Best Actor, Motion Picture, Musical, or Comedy.
Wow.
He was nominated.
I would not think he was a Golden Globe nominee for that. How many movies came out in that year? Just
I will say, and this goes back to the sweetness of the movie. That's the part that really surprised me. I thought it was just going to be goofy. And
me too.
Hijinks, and I was honestly surprised the part where like the goons come in at the end. I thought that was going to be like the third act. I thought that, and it's really short lived. Like there's not a lot with them.
Yeah.
The third act is really the love story part.
Yeah,
and so it's that part surprised me in a pleasant way, that I felt like there was actually a little bit of depth of story there that I didn't expect. And so it makes sense in that way that he got a little more attention for that.
So the field that year at the Golden Globes in this category: Henry Winkler for Night Shift, Robert Preston for Victor Victoria, Al Pacino for Author, Peter O'Toole for My Favorite Year, and the winner was Dustin Hoffman for a film called Tootsie.
Oh. All you had to say is that, and I would have known
I was just hoping they were all repeat titles, because several of them were.
Arthur.
Yeah.
Yeah. So some critical acclaim, some financial success. We were talking about things that kind of caught us by surprise about this film, with not being very raunchy and having a little bit of heart.
But it did show titties.
I think so. I think it did. I feel like I saw some tits in this.
Okay.
Yeah.
I watched it last night. There was nudity.
Oh, there was.
Okay,
yes.
so we can confirm it.
Thank you for being classy.
Of the female persuasion.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you.
I I think there was something else about this, and I don't know if it was just because I was very interested in trying to like mentally put myself back in the time period to consume it for what it was back then. But I felt like stylistically, this was a pretty fun little film too. It's very 80s. It had a very, very successful soundtrack to go with it too. A lot of the themes were written exclusively for the movie, but they had some stuff in there from like Burt Bacharach.
Yes.
Rod Stewart was in there. Shaka Khan. There was some good stuff from like a style standpoint, like the cinematography. I felt like they did a good job of like capturing New York City at nighttime. It was hip. It had the music going with it, and it might not have felt like it in 2025, but I could see myself going back to 1982 and being like, this is a cool movie on top of being funny as well. What did you guys think about like the production aspects of the film?
Well, usually when I see an old movie, I like to eat and drink things from 1982.
Yeah. So what were you consuming for this?
Cabbage and Surge, I think, was in 1982.
Together?
So,
that does sound right.
Yeah, I Googled it, so it should be right. And
the poster, too. I left that out of my notes. The poster for this is very 80s, very cool.
Yes, it is very 80s. And I think you're talking about, like, with Keaton's fashion and stuff, too. Like, they were very on point of kind of capturing, like, the here and now when it was coming out. And I think even, like, for me, when we were watching it for the first time, like, it's still cool to see because it's so different, but you still are able to recognize and appreciate, like, oh, like, this was 80s. And, I mean, the music is, I mean, it's there. So, I think as far as, like, just kind of capturing that moment, it does a nice job, and that's credit to production design, and that's Ron Howard and everybody, kind of the look and feel of it. So Keaton, Winkler, Shelley Long, everybody could kind of, Kevin Costner, they could all,
of course,
they could all just kind of play on the playground of it. But it did kind of feel like it was it did capture this kind of moment in time. And also, as ridiculous as it kind of seemed, especially like of how nice these air quote pimps were to these ladies.
Yeah.
There was still like
gentleman pimps.
Yeah, and I feel like you
pimps.
couldn't even do this today. There would be so much backlash or sensitivity on what they're trying to do that. How can you make something that could be crude, but make it heartfelt? And honestly, in 1982, I think you get yourself a Henry Winkler.
That's an interesting piece to me that really stood out that I didn't expect at all. What you just said about like their kindness and kind of their ability to see the personhood of these women. Like that felt like a deeper kind of place they were going that I wasn't expecting.
Well, there's empathy.
Yes,
there's empathy
right.
there.
Yeah. They weren't
and
just viewing them as a commodity.
If this was done, even in the 90s, but especially in the 2000s, it would have been rated R.
Yeah.
It would have been, crude humor. There wouldn't have probably been any real heart to it.
It would have been called a Nora.
That's right. Would have won 4 Oscars.
Yeah.
But yeah, and again, I do think a lot of it is kind of, like I said, presenting things that were in the here and now then. And I could kind of see, like to Stoney's point, where I'm sure this was probably like a cool movie.
Yeah.
The kind of like, not to this level, but sort of how like Tarantino's kind of like cool.
I felt like what I would equate it to, again, not in terms of quality, but in terms of the experience, like for us, probably like what going to see The Nice Guys in 2016 would have been like.
Yeah. Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah. That's a
cool movie.
Yeah.
Stylish, funny.
It's funny.
Yeah.
And it's got the thing
Good
is
chemistry.
The chemistry, but also the thing is that you are, and I think this is probably the reason why Night Shift is on these lists, is because it introduces you to a talent who's going to go on and he's going to change the
Yeah.
way a comic book movie is ever done, and the characters he's done. I mean, rest your hat on being Batman and Beetlejuice, and then you're going to go and you're going to be what I consider one of the best MCU villains, and then you're going to go and do something like Birdman.
Spotlight.
Right. I mean, and that's not even including some of the other, I mean, he was a talking fucking snowman.
Yeah, I know.
Let's
It's crazy. Yeah.
So,
Thank you for acknowledging that.
I think there's just part of it that you know you're watching a one-of-a-kind talent, and in 1982, those audiences have no idea what that man is about to do.
Yeah. It's cool to watch it knowing that,
But
too.
it's also cool to know that Winkler is still, like, he's still going to be kicking ass
all these years later.
decades from now.
Yeah.
Like, and
Yeah.
so that, and again, you don't know that in 82, but when you can watch it now, it is, it's just cool. And it feels like the movie's cool. Ron Howard is very much, he's young. He kind of gets it, I think, more so. I mean, he still does great stuff, but it's not, I had no idea he was even a part of it. And then to see that Brian Grazer was producing it, and I'm like, so they at least go back to 82.
It's the start of something
But
big.
yeah, what a beautiful scenery on that.
You made the point about the soundtrack. One note that I had that I wanted to be sure to bring up: a theme song that says the name of the movie in it.
It's
Oh yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Who sings the
Let's
thing?
start doing those again. I think it's Burt Bacharach.
Is
I
it
think
him?
he did a lot of the music.
I
so
remember
he
hearing a
mentioned
Rod
that.
Stewart song, but I couldn't tell you what it was.
He did. Yeah, Rod Stewart's "That's What Friends Are For."
Oh,
And that was actually written specifically for the film.
Did it get
Oh no, I'm
nominated?
sorry, that's not true.
Oh, okay.
Some of the tracks were written specifically for the film. Burt Bacharach doing
That stood out to me in
Okay.
the credits that
Yeah.
Burt Bacharach did a lot of music for it, which
Yeah.
was
Did
interesting.
he get nominated?
and not that no, did not.
Won 14 Tonys.
Is that real?
No.
Oh, I say, oh my God, for what? The Lion King?
The film's
That's
opening.
the oldest Broadway show, I think. The Lion King.
Yeah, I think that tracks. The film's opening theme song is "Night Shift" by Quarterflash. The closing theme song, "That's What Friends Are For," was written by Burt Bacharach and Carol Bayer Sager and performed by Rod Stewart.
Oh, wow.
So yeah,
Burt
I
Bacharach
think
was in on it.
I think he wrote like the bulk of the soundtrack.
But was that the debut of That's What Friends Are For? Because I mean,
Yeah.
that's a big song.
It sounds like it's
The-
was made for it.
It doesn't say that one specifically.
oh.
Well, I'm offended that the song Night Shift didn't hang around. I want more now
But
in
just
2025, more
specifically-
theme
Yeah.
songs with the name of the movie in it.
Other songs heard
Or
in
at
the
least
film.
have Smash Mouth sing it.
That's right. Yeah.
Stable individual still in the music industry.
Yeah.
Other songs heard
I
in
think
the
the lead
film
singer's dead.
include "You Really Got Me," but no, that's true.
That's true.
That's actually true. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to
I
edit
like to
this
get
whole
it.
thing.
I like to get it pretty bleak before we continue on for fun.
Other songs heard in the film include "You Really Got Me" by Van Halen.
Yes.
A live version of "Jumpin' Jack Flash" by the Rolling Stones.
There's a live version, and there's a Michael Keaton singing it in the car
Yeah.
while he drives
Yeah.
Clint Howard to
Oh.
the prom or whatever.
Yeah.
Of that song.
Yeah, so I mean, this again, it goes back to what we were talking about,
Greatest
like just
limo service.
a hip quality to this film. People
It
still
is.
say hip, right?
And I still, and I think that what's funny is for one generation it was Winkler. For another generation, I think it was Keaton.
Yeah, I have one more question before I get to the wrap up. Is Michael Keaton an example of somebody actually getting hotter with age? I didn't think he was particularly hot in this film, but he's got that grizzled old.
He's not hot like Billy Crystal when Harry met Sally.
No,
Let me tell
Billy
you that.
Crystal cheeked up in that film.
Yeah, he did.
He'd been in the gym.
I probably prefer him now.
I
Yeah.
think first of all, I think what's in 82, he's working with hair. He's
Yeah.
trying.
Mm-hmm.
We know by the time we get to 89, we're not really there anymore. I think so.
I think he's just a man better served with wrinkles and a little bit of
I
grizzled
think
nature
so,
to
and
him.
I think
Yeah.
and I think he's kind of become more of like just within like because he did what is that what was that show that everyone loved about Dope something
Dope Sick.
Hope sick.
Like
Yeah,
where
that was
I think he won
fantastic.
everything he could.
Fantastic show.
When he gets up there, he still has like he's got this swagger.
He does.
And I think it's only because you can stand there and say you've done these things and you've been doing it for decades. And I think that's what makes you hotter, is that he basically still kind of looks the same.
Yeah.
He's always been a slender guy. Gray hair, hardly any hair, fine. But he's still kind of like Michael fucking Keaton. Like
the award ceremony when they made the joke about Batman and he just said, bring it on. Like, he's cool. He's cool.
Yeah.
Like,
and I believe he could probably still beat some people half his age up.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
and he's like a Montana rancher guy now.
Yeah. I landed when I first hit stop after the movie was over. I landed on a 2.5. I thought like, it's a perfectly fine movie for the era. It's kind of cool more for the history and watching it through the lens of 43 years having gone by than I think it was just at its core a good movie. But then I bumped it up to 3 because I was like, it was fun. I liked it. I liked the vibes in it. I liked Michael Keaton. I liked the swing they took with Henry Winkler.
Yeah.
There was a lot of it that I did feel was kind of silly, but from a stylistic, atmospheric standpoint, I ended up bumping it up to a 3 because of how much fun it was.
And I think a lot of it is because it is in many ways, I thought, kind of pretty predictable as far as like, okay, you kind of know the beats of this, and and obviously movies have carried on that tradition since '82. But to your point, you can't ignore the performances. There's nothing wrong with them. It's just kind of the story itself, but it's also, there's a sweetness to it that I think a lot of people, and honestly, depending on if whoever else directed it, it could have been something more that maybe just wasn't that flattering, wasn't that delightful, wasn't that funny. So I would probably give it about a 3. I did think it would be better as a whole, and I thought it'd be funnier, but I do kind of see the appeal of it. And I can't help but see like some of these careers and kind of like look what they were doing then, and some things haven't changed. Winkler still kind of has some of that same charm. Keaton certainly does. Shelley Long, she was in Modern Family. I think that's the last thing I saw her in. Is what's his name's ex-wife. I think his real name's Al Bundy. And but yeah, I would probably give it around a 3, which I mean, I think it's a solid score, especially for the kind of film it is.
Brett,
I agree with you guys.
I think your letter.
Yeah, I'm on the same page. It was. Yeah. I was with you, Stoney. That as it was going, I was thinking, this is fine. Like middle of the road, 2.5, whatever. The love story piece, kind of that. What you said, Brandon, the sweetness of it, that kind of put it over the top for me a little bit. I enjoyed that. And there were even some poignant moments, kind of about male friendship and that kind of thing.
Sure.
Throughout it that
especially
I
when
enjoyed
he
too.
lashes out at Keaton and Keaton goes into one of the morgue things. And like, there are some quality stuff in there. I agree. I think in your first kind of viewing, you're kind of like, well, you thought it would kind of have some kind of impact more, I guess, because of the buildup that what it did. Like in this day and age, it does sound weird, like Winkler getting a nomination, because you're like, gosh, I feel like this is something that could easily be like on almost like a Netflix movie. But there's quality to it that does make it stand out, to where if that story was done today, it would be way shittier, and it would be streaming, and it wouldn't be done nearly with the kind of care that Ron Howard had in mind. So, and it definitely wouldn't get the same kind of talent.
And Clint Howard wouldn't get to be in it.
And Clint Howard, that's right. Fugly Howard, we call him around the house.
I'm glad you said that, Brett.
Do you think Clint Howard's gotten sexier? The older he's gotten, or what? How do you feel about him?
Definitely wouldn't fuck him.
Yeah, that was Clint Howard's single best looking moment.
Yeah. And if you watch that, you tell me.
Yeah. I'm glad you said that, Brett, because I was going to ask you guys if you had a favorite scene or something from the movie, a favorite quote or something. But I do think there were a few little moments, a few little quips of dialogue in this that kind of felt like pretty relevant social commentary. And one of them that I wrote down was Henry Winkler says he's basically feeling guilty over making money off of women, quote, rolling around in strange beds with strange men. And Michael Keaton's response to that is this a great country or what? And I felt like, you know what? That's even today, all these years later, that kind of feels
that
like
rings
something.
true. That rings true.
But did you guys have any particular favorite scenes or quotes or something like that from this film?
I don't know if I have any favorite scenes. I did think it did the tone does kind of change when Keaton's feelings get hurt.
Yeah.
When he actually shows that vulnerability. But I do think, I think when you first see Keaton come on screen,
you know right away.
You know, it changes things.
Yeah. Brett?
I think it may be the moment you're talking about with Keaton that we were talking before we started about this being a Christmas movie because there's a scene around that Christmas tree. And I can't remember exactly what he's saying in that moment, but he's talking about like a wound from earlier in his life or something.
Yeah, I don't think there's a lot of detail, but he does talk.
And that kind of forms that bond between them that goes on from there. And I did like that scene a lot.
Yeah. That meant a lot as they're about to go forward in this kind of business relationship.
You can buy this movie on DVD. You can get a physical copy of this movie. I looked up on Amazon. I don't think it's cheap, but or maybe it was eBay. I can't remember. Would you guys add it to your collection just for the sheer history of it? Just the conversation you can have off of it?
I would not.
Yeah, I wouldn't either.
I would. I think I'm gonna add it to mine.
No. I don't even have Birdman.
Get the physical copy, you coward.
Yeah.
I don't care how much it is.
Yeah.
$70 on eBay for
worth it
for a DVD of Night Shift.
No, I'm just saying. I'm just making a joke. Yeah.
I'm about to say, oh my God.
No,
I don't even know how many Keaton movies I own.
I've got Birdman.
I don't have Birdman.
That's something that I bought it at Danger Zone Video.
I have Spotlight, and
I'd like to have Spotlight,
and I have 1989's Batman.
Yeah,
and I have Spider-Man: Homecoming.
I've got the other guys.
Oh, I don't know if I have that.
I was
trying to think of his other stuff that he has done, but I don't have like The Founder or.
Oh, I love The Founder too. That was one of my favorite films. Do we have
That's the McDonald's.
Did we do a Michael Keaton Mount Rushmore?
I want to think we did when we did our podcast about it.
I don't mean to put you on the spot, Brett, but would you have one by chance?
I'm almost positive we did.
I don't know that I have a Mount Rushmore, but I would say this. Like, an interesting thing to me is that Beetlejuice is integral to my childhood.
I have Beetlejuice too.
Just as a character. I actually don't love the Beetlejuice movie, the first one or the second one, that much. Like, it's an iconic character. The movie, like you said the thing earlier about Alec Baldwin said, I don't know what we're doing here. I watch the movie now and often say, I don't know what they're doing here.
Yes.
But it's just a strange movie. But it's iconic, all the character, it's someone I've dressed up as Halloween character, so very important in my life.
Yep.
My kids know who Beetlejuice is in the year 2025, and so that's just been an interesting kind of contrast in my life that I love that character, don't so much love the movie as much.
I like the first one. Now I only watch it around Halloween. I don't really get into it. Beetlejuice is fine. I'm not a huge fan of that, but it's not to Keaton. I mean, the thing is, I can't really blame anything on Keaton as far as I'll be honest. Beetlejuice. Now listen, when was the first one? 87, 80. It was right before Batman. And he did one in 2023. Him and Burton, and first of all, it's maybe some of the best Burton in I don't know how long because he's been on a downfall. But, I mean, he still got it. Keaton still got it.
You mentioned this earlier. This is not Rushmore for me, but him as Vulture in the Tom Holland Spider-Man.
I love it.
Very good.
He's great. I love that performance.
I love it.
Yeah.
I will never, ever forget when they go to her house and he opens that door.
Yeah. Oh, baby.
I was like, holy shit. And when he talks to him in the car, I'm like...
That's the scene I always think of in the car.
And I just think, no, but the thing is, hardly any other actor of any level could have that kind of conversation and it come off that way than when you have a man like Michael Keaton he's done it all.
Yeah.
So,
I have not been listening to you guys because I just ordered my Blu-ray copy of Night Shift off of Amazon.
How much?
Whoa, how much?
$20.
Wow.
That was $14.99 plus shipping.
How would you grade Keaton's performance in the new RoboCop?
You know what? I did not hate that movie.
With Joel Kinnaman.
I did not hate that movie.
And he was in Herbie.
He was in Herbie, yeah.
Yeah. I'm just thinking of other things Keaton's done.
No,
but let
you
me
know
tell
what?
you.
Maybe I'm thinking of the Judge Dredd reboot they did.
No, he's not in that.
Well, he's not in that, but
even
I'm
though
thinking
the Judge Dredd is cool.
I think I'm in. I don't know that I've seen the RoboCop remake. I think I'm thinking RoboCop is Judge Dredd.
But let me tell you, Kevin Costner. Let's do a show about Kevin Costner. Michael Keaton is Pixar legacy because he was in the first Cars.
Yeah.
And then he came around to the best Toy Story. Toy Story 3 is Ken.
How about that?
Yeah, he does both.
There we go.
So good for him.
Well, that's going to do it for this episode of the Movie Review Rewind podcast. Wrapping up Night Shift from 1982, a trip way back.
Nice.
Further back than we usually go, than we've been going on this show.
Yeah, well, we probably can't beat Nosferatu, just so you know. That's 100 years.
Do you want to try one day?
What is it?
What is the... We'll find the first movie ever made.
First movie ever made. And
we'll
I hope it's on that website.
We can't talk about that
it better
on the air.
Because I ain't buying it.
Brandon, any final thoughts on Night Shift?
No, it's a fun movie. I think it's cool to just see Winkler and Keaton kind of mix it up.
Yeah.
And I think it's awesome to know that different generations know them for different things, but the fact is that they've been a mainstay through with audiences for a very long time. So that's cool.
Brett?
I had a different perspective than y'all. Y'all went in with this kind of Michael Keaton lens to go back and revisit this movie. I didn't even know this was a movie until y'all started talking about it. So
when I would look up Night Shift, the first thing it would show me is Day Shift, that Jamie Foxx Netflix movie.
They are related. I think that's the sequel.
Well, we call it a legacy sequel.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, but I'll just say from kind of going from no knowledge of it at all to then learning what it was. And like I said, the summary of what it is different than what you actually get.
Yeah,
I feel like once you get into it, I actually enjoyed it more than I expected to.
Fair enough.
I was just shocked in Day Shift when Winkler was a vampire. I didn't see that coming.
I think that was actually Wrinkler.
Oh, that could be.
I just thought
I
of
think
another...
that was Hank Wrinkler.
I just thought of another question on the fly after saying we were going to wrap this up. If you were to reboot
I wish we would have ended with Hank
2000
Wrinkler.
in 2025. If you were to reboot it, who would be your people in this?
I mean, one of them has to be Paul Rudd, right?
Paul Rudd would be great in the Michael Keaton role. Well, he would be great in both.
He would
roles.
be great, yeah.
It's a tough one.
That is tough. And I'm trying to think of people that would still give it its like sweetness, even if you're gonna.
I feel like Ryan Gosling's good in roles like that.
Yeah, he could.
But it's too easy, right?
That is too easy.
It's too easy to go Ryan Gosling.
And then parts of me thinks like Jake Gyllenhaal and Paul Rudd.
What about?
But flip them. Let Paul Rudd be the straight man, and let Gyllenhaal be Keaton, maybe.
Oh yeah,
Theo Vaughn as Keaton's
Oh,
character.
that's nice. Yes, that's nice.
What about Glenn Powell?
What about Glenn Close?
Glenn Powell and Glenn Close.
Now, who's going to be what? Because Glenn Close should be Keaton, if that's what you're asking.
Glenn
Powell could. That is, if you want to be hip now.
Glenn Powell in the Michael Keaton role is what I'm thinking.
Glenn Powell, and then the straight man could be Paul Rudd.
Or unhinged Russell Crowe.
The lady, Shelley Long specifically, could be... it's
got to be Sydney Sweeney.
That's what I was going to... Let's just reunite her and Glenn Powell together. Yeah. And then, stick with me. Kevin Costner is still that frat boy in there.
I do like that.
I like that, yeah. We still haven't figured out, are we doing Paul Rudd as the straight man?
I like that option.
I think he would do a fine job.
Paul Rudd
Glenn
falling
Powell,
in love with Sydney Sweeney seems a little weird, though.
Paul Rudd, what?
Paul Rudd falling in love with Sydney Sweeney.
Does he fall in love with her?
Are we casting Sydney
Isn't she
Sweeney?
Shelley Long?
Yeah, that's what we said.
Yeah.
But isn't Winkler?
Well, that's what we're saying. We're making
Paul Rudd.
I see.
Paul Rudd falls in love with
you
Sydney Sweeney, and that feels a little weird.
Okay, yeah. We have to change one of them then.
Yeah. Somebody
Let's
younger.
keep Sweeney.
Coleman Domingo.
Oh,
perfect.
That is nice. That's nice. You know what? How about let's see. Who is it? Glenn Powell is
Glenn Powell is
I'm
Michael
just trying
Keaton.
to think because parts of me feels like maybe we've gone too young for Sydney Sweeney.
Yeah, maybe we have.
But
maybe some Helen Mirren instead.
Yeah. That's I think
And
that's
then
better.
Paul Rudd.
And then Paul Rudd.
Yeah, and then the Glenn Powell, let's let that be Joe Pesci.
All right, there we go. There we
Perfect.
go. All right, let's get out of here. Brett, do you
Bingo.
have anything you want to promote? Anywhere you want to tell our listeners
Yeah,
to find you? Or
Got
any of that?
anything on?
I don't think so.
All right, Brandon.
At Sir Brandon V on Twitter, Sir Brandon on Letterboxd, and just Nashville Movie Dispatch, Substack.com.
There we go. And I'm at Stoney Keeley on Twitter and Letterboxd. And like Brandon said, all of our work is up at NashvilleMovieDispatch.substack.com. You can also subscribe to Nashville Movie Dispatch wherever you take in your podcasts. Until next month, we're going to be talking about How to Train Your Dragon and Palm Springs. We got a bonus month in June. You stay classy, moviegoers.